Channel 3 Burlington.
On the Channel 3 late news tonight, we'll go live to Morrisville, where authorities are investigating a homicide. The man who last saw a missing Northfield woman faces sexual assault charges, and the search is on for the elusive Lake Champlain monster. Good evening, I'm Roger Garrity. Police in Morrisville are investigating a murder tonight. 42-year-old Cheryl Peters was found dead in her home around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Police say there are several suspects. Details are just becoming available. Natalie Borak is standing by live at the murder scene with the latest.
Excuse me, Roger, I'm standing here at the home of Cheryl Peters, where police say she was murdered sometime late last night. It's on the quiet Washington Highway in the town of Morrisville. It's a small white bungalow situated in between two cornfields just a few hundred yards from where Peters worked as a lab technician. In fact, it is when Peters did not show up for her job this morning that police were alerted that there might be a problem. Police were initially called into this case with the information it was a suicide.
We went up and walked into the house, and from the looks of things, it looked a little, what do I want to say, it didn't have the characteristics of a suicide. So we took and started treating it as a homicide. And as we got into the investigation further, we found that it definitely was a homicide. And
what led you to that conclusion?
Well, one of the things was the way the body was situated. And the door was locked, and we did find the back door ajar, and we didn't find any murder weapon.
LeClaire says that murder weapon was a handgun, but he would not say where Peters was shot. He also is interviewing suspects at this time, but he also again declined to say how many or who those suspects are. Peters was married with several children, and LeClaire did say that she is estranged from her husband, but again, he declined to say if the husband is a suspect. We do know that Peters is from the Morrisville area from a long time and a very large extended family, but she was also contemplating a move to the Vermont area, according to Chief LeClaire. And other than that, Roger, we really just don't have many details. Chief LeClaire hopes to have more for us tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Natalie Borak, live in Morrisville. We will be following that story as it develops. The man who prosecutors call the prime suspect in the case of a missing Northfield woman was in court today. Patrick Jarvis was charged with sexually assaulting a minor in a case that may be related to the missing person case. Catherine Hughes has more.
36-year-old Patrick Jarvis was arraigned this afternoon on charges of sexually assaulting a young girl. Authorities say they learned about the assault while investigating the disappearance of Audrey Grote. Jarvis of Barry was the last known person to see Grote alive. Today he pled innocent to the aggravated sexual assault of a teenaged girl. The state argued for high cash bail as the prosecutor raised prospects of other charges.
I don't think it's any secret, Your Honor, that Mr. Jarvis is a suspect in the young victim's missing mother in this case. That certainly adds to his risk of flight. And I think a substantial cash bail is appropriate in this matter.
I would submit to the court that the only reason he's a suspect is because he is the last known, and I emphasize the word known, person to have seen her.
When asked if Jarvis would be charged in connection with Audrey Grote's disappearance, the investigators had no comment. Police are still looking for any clue in her disappearance 13 days ago. As for the assault charges, Jarvis's attorney said the state has a weak case.
You have no confession here, you have no physical evidence, it's one person's word against another.
But Judge Dean Pinella said the state's evidence did appear to be strong and that Jarvis was a risk to flee despite his family ties to the area. Bail was set at $25,000 cash with conditions. Catherine Hughes, Channel 3 News in Barry.
Another missing persons case tonight. This one, a 14-year-old girl who was last seen 3 days ago. Tanya Simmons was last seen on Monday on Wheelock Road in the Lyndonville, St. Johnsbury area. She's described as 5 feet 7 inches tall with brown hair and blue eyes. She was wearing a black t-shirt, blue jeans, and sneakers. Anyone with any information is asked to contact state police. Supporters of the Plattsburgh Air Force Base are moving closer toward a decision to take legal action against the base closing commission for its recommendation that Plattsburgh shut down in 3 years. New York Congressman John McHugh said today he strongly supports that action.
By the same token, we want to make that final judgment in concert with the community, in concert with the state, and of course, after touching base with the attorneys another time. There are a lot of decisions and a lot of factors that have to be weighed and judged, but to this point, I think everyone at the table, attorneys included, have come to the conclusion that we have a case and we should continue forward.
The Pentagon wanted to keep Plattsburgh open and, in fact, expand the air base, but the Closure Commission decided otherwise, and Plattsburgh supporters say the decision was motivated by politics and not sound military judgment. A decision as to whether to go ahead with legal action is expected by next Tuesday. President Clinton is again threatening to use military force in Bosnia. His comments came a day after the latest peace plan fell through. Clinton blames the Serbs and Croats for the failure of the three-way partition plan. Clinton warned both factions today that NATO airstrikes will be launched if heavy fighting breaks out again. That is a position that Vermont Senator James Jeffords says he supports.
To me, those are such easily give-ins to the Serbs in particular, who have wrestled so much away and have gained so much, that it seems to me that if the United States is strong and threatens force, and that the Serbs will back down.
Jeffords says he's concerned that if a peace agreement is not reached before winter sets in, there could be a catastrophic loss of life from starvation and exposure. The new peace plan in Israel remains alive and well as negotiators continue to hammer out a deal there, but at the same time tensions are rising in the occupied territories. Bob Simon has more on that.
The road to peace leads through bad lands in this part of the world. An Israeli soldier became the first casualty of the new initiative this afternoon. He was shot dead by Palestinians near the West Bank town of Hebron. The army arrested some suspects. The killers got away. On another stretch of the road, down the Jordan Valley near Jericho, Israeli settlers stopped traffic for a while. On the Jordan Valley near Jericho, Israeli settlers stopped traffic for a while. It was their way of saying they don't want Yasser Arafat for a neighbor. These are the Jews who live in the area, which is due to be governed by Palestinians within the next few months. Prime Minister Rabin hit the streets of Tel Aviv today, garnering support for his tough road ahead. After generations of bloodshed, the battle between hope and skepticism is the real war being waged right now, being waged inside the mind of everyone who lives here.
I don't think that there's any chance that it's going to last.
We're being asked to risk our lives for the hope of peace. I don't know if it's a good deal.
I don't care whatever it's going to cost, but we must try it. If we will not try it, we are lost. It's about time to do it, so let's do it.
Palestinian leaders were campaigning in their constituencies, trying to convince their skeptics that a Palestinian state is not that far down the road. Yasser Arafat came to a West Bank university by telephone, assuring the students that he'll be dropping by in person very soon.
I think support will slowly gather strength, and eventually you will have a majority support, I believe, to the agreement.
The Clinton administration is asking Israel to slow things down a bit and to drum up American Jewish support for the deal. U.S. recognition of the PLO is an integral part of the arrangement, and the administration wants some time and some help in getting Congress behind it. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
A former Atlanta banker today pleaded guilty to making more than $5 billion in illegal loans to Iraq. Christopher Dragul was the Atlanta branch manager for an Italian bank known as BNL. Dragul was accused of funneling $5.5 billion to Iraq and hiding the deals from BNL and U.S. regulators. Some of the money helped fund Iraq's military before the Persian Gulf War. Today, less than a week before he was to go to trial, Dragul pleaded guilty to 3 of the 70 counts against him. And still ahead on tonight's late news, the search is on for the mystical monster of Lake Champlain. And the race to space is now a team effort. We'll have more on those stories when we come back.
The Lincoln Mercury Model Year Move Out. It doesn't matter how you get here, just get here. For clearance savings on Mercury Grand Marquis, Cougar XR7, and Villager minivans. Lease the safety of Mercury Sable or the luxury of Lincoln Town Car. You could even win America's best-selling luxury coupe, Lincoln Mark 8. Right now, no one's offering you more for less. So get to your Lincoln Mercury dealer any way you can before our Model Year Move Out moves out.
Floyd, more paste picante sauce. There you go. Floyd, this ain't paste. Well, so what? Paste is made in San Antonio.
By folks who know what picante sauce should taste like. Hey, this stuff's made in New York City.
New York City?
Pick up the original. Pick up the pace.
Maybe we were a bit too hard on Floyd. Nah.
Vermont's economy is still ailing. That's the conclusion of state officials after looking at the latest revenue figures. The drop in August tax collections was larger than expected, off 4% from a year ago. Rooms and meals was down 6.5%, and the gas tax plummeted more than 12%. A hoped-for increase in those tourism-related taxes never materialized.
I think they're not driving as much as maybe they did a year ago, and they're not spending much in terms of buying things, and nothing to say that this has been a booming tourist season, at least in these numbers.
In addition, sales and use taxes were off 20%, corporate income tax collections down 40%. The administration says some of the revenue losses will be made up when the Clinton tax plan goes into effect. Well, the future looks very dim for the nearly 270 workers at the Johnson Controls battery plant in Bennington. Today, Governor Howard Dean met with company executives who outlined their reasons for considering closing the plant. A final decision will be announced by September 15th. That gives the state 2 weeks to try to convince the company to keep the plant open, but the governor says it's definitely an uphill battle. John Casella appears to be facing a long struggle in his efforts to build a new lined landfill in the town of Newberry. Town planners have rejected his plans, saying it would be too big and that it would not fit guidelines calling for a harmonious relationship with neighbors. Those living near Casella's existing landfill say it's been polluting the area and fear the new dump would cause similar problems. Casella denies that. For now, he's declining comment on the Planning Commission's action. Floodwaters left Midwesterners up to their eyeballs in damages and bills, but the Clinton administration is leaving them high and dry as well and unable to qualify for federal aid. The administration has changed its formula for aid distribution, reducing the amount of matching money the state must pay to qualify, but only if damage is at least $64 per person. None of the 9 flooded states has reached that level. Laura Hogan is up next with a check on the weather. We're no flooding in this area, but we may have some rain on the way.
We do have rain on the way, Roger, and people in the Midwest and the Southern Plains again seeing some strong thunderstorms. Clouds were on the increase this afternoon. Showers are now on our doorstep. In fact, some thunderstorms moving into western New York State did some damage over there, downing some trees and power lines.